What's up guys, Frank Macaluso here from Garageaholic giving you another episode of the N54 maintenance series. Today we're going to be working on the oil filter housing gasket set. Now this is a very common failure mode on a lot of N54s in which the oil filter housing leaks, causing a leak of oil onto the belt, causing a premature wear of the belt. And when the belt wears out, it actually wraps around the crank on the bell housing and gets sucked in through the rear intake seal on the front main seal, and then it gets sucked up by your oil pickup, which starves your oil, your top end of oil, and you destroy your entire engine. So replacing the oil filter housing gaskets is very easy, and it's very, very required. Stand by guys, this one's a good one. Now here's the oil filter. Okay, this is the whole assembly. And yes, I have the intake manifold removed. Take a look at another video right up there, or there actually, about how to do that. But here we're going to be removing the oil filter housing and the gaskets and replacing those with new gaskets. And in order to do that, it actually has nothing to do with the intake manifold. It actually has to do with removing the fan and removing the oil lines so you can get access to all of these things, remove them, and then replace them with fresh things. So what we need to do is assess the hardware that came in our kit and understand where that's going to end up going. So this is the kit. There are two different seals on the kit. There's an oil pressure sensor, and there's also the 3 bolts. Seemingly easy to repair, right? Let's just see what it takes in order to get access to these bolts so that we can remove this stuff and start getting the new gaskets in. All right, so right in there, underneath the upper radiator hose, is a little bit of a clip right here. And this clip needs to be peeled back so that you can bring up the radiator. So if you can see right there, I'm like prying this little clip back like this. And that will allow me to lift the radiator up. Now remember, the fan shroud actually. Now if you look down below right here, you'll see a little clip that connects the charge air tube to the shroud. There's like a little bit of a rubber grommet there. That also needs to be disconnected. And you see this one has already been disconnected, so now the fan shroud will slide all the way up. Now be very, very careful when removing this shroud that you do not ruin or break the upper coolant reservoir nipple on the upper radiator hose. Very common thing to break when you're dealing with this. So just be very careful when you're lifting this up carefully. Well, unfortunately, I broke a clip on the way taking the fan out. Very tight clearances. And unfortunately, this is the clip that I was explaining earlier that sits right on here, and it actually is the one you have to lift in order to get the fan out. So this is a good clip to have to keep the fan in place when you have it installed. Now, the way to fix this is through what's called a plastic welder. A plastic welder takes both of these 2 electrodes and connects it with a thin wire that basically has inductive heat passes through it, and it melts the plastic as you press the metal onto the 2 pieces of plastic in order to repair it. So what I want to do is I want to literally do that, put this on, put this right next to it, and I want to get this to be fixed. So I want to show you exactly how to do that because more often than not, you're going to end up having broken clips, and to have a plastic welder like this is really, really useful because in many cases, the repaired plastic piece, if you do it correctly, is just as strong, if not stronger, than the original, because you have now like basically metal infused in between the 2 pieces. So this is really cool. Let me show you how it works. So the piece kind of sits in right like that. If you take your plastic tool, put it right where it belongs, right, actually you technically want it there, but this is okay too. Put it right there, press the button, hold it, and push. You'll see that the metal is getting really hot and it's sinking into both pieces of plastic. Then you let go of the button, let it harden for a second, and then you pull that out. It sits just like that. I'm going to do another one on the back side as well for added strength, and this thing should be ready to go. Press and hold. go, let it cool. Lift it out. Just as strong. Now all you gotta do really is just clip these little leads, file the extra plastic off, and you're good to go. Now that the fan shroud is out, now we have to remove the upper radiator hose. And in order to do that, we need to drain the coolant. In order to drain the coolant, we need to remove the lower FMIC, the front mounted intercooler. Now let's raise the car up and let's remove the intercooler so it access the blue drain plug on the bottom of the radiator. It is the FMIC, the front mounted intercooler. In order to remove that, you gotta remove both this, and of course there's 2 bolts right there and 1 right there. And then the intercooler can drop down. Now this is intended to, we're gonna keep this intercooler off because we're gonna be replacing it with a larger version of the intercooler. So this is gonna allow us access to not only the drain plug right up in here for the radiator, but it's also going to facilitate the upgraded intercooler installation as well. And there it is. Kind of a makeshift tool. This is a little mini pry bar in order to get the width on that I need. And you just kind of go do it in like quarter turns. And there it is. Now we get to remove the upper hose. This is dirty. All right, so now the coolant is completely drained and we need to remove these guys. And the reason that we can't just take off this whole housing is because there's 3 bolts, 1 Torx, 2 Torx, and there's 1 underneath. That is the 3rd one, and that also needs to be accessed. In order to do that, you'd have to take these 2 hoses out. There's a 13 millimeter. You might be able to see it right here like this. You can see right down there in between those 2. I'll point to it in the video. That needs to be removed, and then there will be oil that comes out, so you have to catch that oil so it doesn't get all over everything, even though it's pretty dirty in here anyway. You can try to keep it as clean as possible, I guess, right? Now comes the fun part. Let's remove the stuff. This coolant line needs to come out. There's 2 bolts here that hold this in place, this flange. That needs to come out. That allows us access to the lower bolt that holds the major housing. But before we should do that, we should probably take apart 1, 2, 3 bolts from this housing, take that off, and that'll allow us a little bit easier access to get to that bottom bolt as well. So there you have it. The oil filter assembly is completely removed and I cleaned it all up, and this is a nice smooth surface now. There's just a little bit more to kind of sand down, maybe not sand, but polish perhaps, and get rid of that, the lines, but everything does look good there. So not to say that we're ready to reinstall yet, because we still have these pieces here that have been incredibly dirtified over the years, and the seals here need to be pried out. I have not taken the seals out. I actually just have degunked a lot of this, so it's kind of soaking right now, if you will, and it's going to be nice and clean when we're done, and these parts are going to be ready to be reinstalled in no time. So let's let this soak overnight, and then we'll clean it all up, replace the gaskets, and throw it back in. I'm going to clean this up a little bit better, obviously, but these are the mating surfaces of, this is the mating surface for this gasket right here, which will need to be replaced. Let's start peeling that back. Ooh, this is a tough gasket. This is really like, ugh, plasticky. Look at this. It cracked. It cracks. Look at that. Look at that. This was definitely required. Very much needed. Oh man, okay. Same deal with this one? Probably, right? I'm gonna guess. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's plastic. Great. And then obviously this oil pressure sensor is also gonna get replaced as well. So let's clean these up. Let's throw the new gaskets on and let's put the new hardware on and put it back together. Now, torque every single one of these, all 6, 1, 2, 3 down here, 4 down here, 5, 6 to 16 foot-pounds. And that's just about it for the oil filter housing. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please take a look at all the other videos in the N54 maintenance series that I've done. It's like 20 to 25 videos, all covering very common maintenance procedures on an N54 in an E90 or an E92. Guys, my name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic. Thanks a lot for tuning in and take care, guys. Later.